I'm in Chinese Camp, California. I stopped at this general store on the highway. It's kind of cool. I'll show you around. Sir, are you from this area?
Yeah.
You own this place? Or?
I don't. I just work here sometimes.
It's pretty cool.
It is a cool place, and people there, the people that own the place, they're pretty cool. I like working here because you know, they don't get all excited about too much stuff. You know, I'm getting in a big hurry with. Usually, I'm used to everybody yelling and all the time. I worked for my dad most of my life, and so he always yelled and, oh, we gotta hurry, and it's different. I don't make very much money working for these guys, but it's cool.
Money's not important.
Yeah,
not
well,
always.
To a certain point, but you're right. You're right. It's not the important thing. I heard somebody tell somebody else the other day. They're like, oh, well, if you don't have money and you can't build any houses, then just work on build relationships, because they'll last long. Sometimes they last forever, you know. You know, there's a ghost town.
Yeah.
A 2 blocks over. You see all these old. You see that windmill there?
Yeah.
See this one here? This one still has the old water tank storage. But if you just walk down the street, one block, it's a real deal abandoned ghost town.
Okay. I'm headed there then.
Yeah, and go ask Richard about it. So he'll give you some stuff to go look if you want to take pictures and check stuff out. He'll show you the cool stuff.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, kind of cool. But this town's got a lot of history.
I just stumbled on a gold mine. I'm gonna spend some time here checking it out. Thank you.
You stumbled on a gold mine? Oh, here.
I mean, metaphorically.
Oh, I was like, a gold mine. Yeah, that's cool. That's funny.
Thanks,
Yeah,
man.
Yeah, no problem.
So Chinese camp, so the gold rush started 1848, and then people started heading south from the original finds to look for gold. And so at first they thought they had to look at rivers, but then they realized even an ancient river would do, because an ancient river, even if it was no longer flowing, still collected gold. So Englishmen found gold here in the gravel, in Chinese camp in 1849, and they called it Camp Washington. So the English, they loved Washington because he could have been king, but he chose not to. So. But Chinese, there's two different stories about how the Chinese came. One story is that the Chinese were they were mining alongside El Salvadorians, and the Chinese were ex-sailors. So they were sailors between Canton and San Francisco when the gold rush broke out. I mean, who would want to be a sailor when you could be, in the very beginning of the gold rush, making ounces of gold a day? So one story is they abandoned their sailor jobs. They came up here as gold miners, joined El Salvadorians, and they went to a camp up here called Camp Salvado, and there's just remnants of it now. But the two groups fought, and the Chinese split off and joined the English down here. That's one story. The other story is the English hired the Chinese to assist them on their gold expedition, but then the Chinese ended up having their own kind of operation. So one of those two, or maybe even both, we ended up with English and Chinese here in 1849 at Camp Washington. But people, when they would come here, they would see all the Chinese, which was about half the town, and more than half of the businesses, and they would start calling the place Chinese Camp, or Chinny, or Chinese Diggings. So, or somewhere around the end of 1849, the town decided, everybody thinks we're called Chinese Camp, we're going to change our name to Chinese Camp. So ever since then, the town's been Chinese Camp. So
why not?
Yeah. It was better because everybody knew what that was, and so the town grew quite rapidly from 1850 to 1880. It stayed about half Chinese the whole time, but then the economy shifted, trade routes shifted, and the town started dying in the 1880s, and then it died very quickly in the 1890s, and by 1920 it was just pretty much abandoned. It was just, this is a rancher community with a few houses, and it's been that way ever since.
I thought I saw on the sign 150 population. Is that accurate?
It is, but it's not. There's not 150 people in the footprint of the old town. There's maybe 50 or 60. So the 150 includes people pretty far out. So it's really gone from. Some people say 5,000.
Hey, bud, someone dropped their headphones side there, right there.
Oh, okay. If they look for it, thanks, Ben. Yeah. So some people, there were certainly thousands, and some people have said as many 5,000 people here in the 1880s, and now on that same footprint there's 50 or 100 or something like that. So it really is a ghost town. You can see the oldest church in the county if we walk over here.
Yeah, and I heard
it's supposed to be haunted.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you can see that's it right there, and see up in the trees the white building back there.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
all right. I see it way.
Yep, there's a graveyard there.
Up there.
Yes. So there's 4 graveyards in town all along the ridge here. They'd always bury their people, in the elevated areas, because otherwise, most likely people digging your graves out looking for gold again later. So so they go on hilltops. So 4 hilltops in a row. There's grave sites. But the church is where that's the Catholic church. It's an abandoned church built in 1954. St. Francis.
Is it worth going up there and getting some footage?
It is nice up there, yeah. It's very nice up there, yeah.
Okay.
There's some interesting gravestones. Like there's one where a father and 7 sons buried the mother and the only daughter, I don't know, it's kind of sobering when you read it. It's 1873 gravestone. But yeah, I mean, you can imagine December 1873, they're all standing around the grave, and the only 2 women in the family are, now in the ground, so.
That must have been a lonely man.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So a block down this way is Main Street. So if you turn left, you'll go up and see the old church. But if you turn right, it's the ghost town, the abandoned section of town. There's a 2-story mansion, an old boarding house, 3 saloons. They're all over there. out.
Okay, I'm gonna go check that out.
Yeah, we're checking out.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, cool.
Richard, right?
Yep, that's right.
Appreciate that, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Andrew.
Andrew, good deal.
Thank you. Okay. So this house was moved from Sonora.
This house used to be a whorehouse. Well, it said that it was a house, the house full of pretty ladies. And so I've gone in here before, and every single room has one of those little makeup things.
A boudoir.
Yeah, I don't know what they're called, but it's a thing where you sit and it's got a little mirror and the makeup and stuff. And
huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
So this building right here was the second Wells Fargo building ever. Number two. Number one was in San Francisco, and this was number two. And another thing, interesting little fact about this place, I think, if not the largest, one of the largest federally insured amounts of money that was ever stolen by an outlaw or a bank robber or whatever that they never recovered.
Came from here?
Left here and never made it to Big Oak Flat, which is just 30 miles up the road. And supposedly Joaquin Marietta is Zorro. Zorro means the fox, and what Joaquin Marietta was Zorro. You ever notice how Zorro had a sword, but he was back in the gunfighting days?
Yeah.
The reason they did that was because Joaquin Marietta never used a gun in any of his robberies.
I didn't know that Zorro was based on a real person. Oh,
yeah. I think.
And this building, is this another one of the ghost towns?
Oh, this is the one. This one right here is the one. This building used to belong. So this is like a mansion. Yeah, this building used to belong to several people. At first it was a doctor, and then it was a guy who was a count. Count Solinsky.
A count?
Count. Oh. It was usually the other way in, except for somebody did that to me, those fuck ass.
Huh. You used to be able to go down there, huh?
So these buildings right here are they're not private property. They're not. This is a ghost town. And anybody can be here. But there's a guy in town that's
so cool.
There's a guy in town that likes to run everybody off. And one of these days, I'm gonna make one of those little traps that gets his legs and hangs him upside down. Up in a tree.
A bear trap.
I'll be like, there you go, partner. My luck, it would get around his neck or something, and then I'd get in trouble. Oh, and okay. If you go down to the end of this road and over, there's a homeless guy that lives in one of those houses, or there's only two houses over there. Don't take any pictures of Billy's house.
Okay, gotcha. No pictures of Billy.
Bleh.
I don't want to get shot with.
No, he don't have any guns.
Buckshot.
He don't have any guns.
Wow.
And if he doesn't, it says anything or does anything to you, you just slap the shit.
So, you said this was the house of a count.
It was at one time.
That's so cool.
First it was a doctor.
A doctor.
And then it was a count. And so that house has like 12 wood-burning fireplaces in it. And also too, in that house, there's a piano in every room, which is kind of weird. Piano in every room. And so this one time, before they boarded it all up and stuff, I was standing inside of there, and this car pulls up, and this family gets out, and I was looking at them, you know, through the window, and I'm standing in there being quiet so they don't hear me or whatever. And then I was like, oh. And this little girl was like, Dad, I hear footsteps. And he's like, no, you don't hear footsteps. You don't hear no footsteps. And I'm going, and then the girl's like, no, I do. And that little girl could hear my footsteps. And so I'd be like, oh, Dad, I heard you. No, you don't hear no footsteps. And so then I was like, oh, and then her dad was like, you're hearing things. Stop lying. And I was like, oh, man. And so I was standing by this piano and I go, boom, 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 boom. And they all went, wah! And they all...
That's why they say it's haunted.
And they all jumped in their car and took off. And I was like... And then Richard told me that he read he was always researching Chinese camps and old stuff, and he said that he read a thing that a family in San Jose that weekend before went on a family vacation to Yosemite, and when they were in Chinese camp, they heard a piano play in the thing, and I was like, that's awesome. It's kind of funny. I was like, you found that on the internet? That's
I mean, have you personally seen any ghosts?
no. I don't. So
I mean,
so it's
I'm
weird.
glad it's daytime, because if I came here at night, for sure it would. I'd be freaked out.
So that's something. It's kind of fun, but you can't find very many people that'll come on Halloween. Sometimes I'll talk some people into coming out here, but one of the things, I just live right on the other side of the road over there, and so I can see whenever people come in here with their lights or whatever. One of my hobbies is I love scaring the shit out of people, and they're right here. It's just very easy.
The joys of living in a small town.
I don't know what this used to be, but it's got thick walls.
Whoa.
So, you know, they're back in the day.
Maybe it was the bathroom?
I think that is what that was right there. Actually, I know it was because I dug a hole right there one time looking for bottles, but I didn't find any. It wasn't old enough to be a tool, but actually no.
Do people still mine for gold?
Well, not really.
Not really.
The government has made it. The government. Well, so okay, if a person could go out and mine gold, enough gold every day, you know, not to get rich, but if they could make a living, government doesn't like that because you don't pay taxes. So they have done all kinds of stuff to discourage people from mining. Like all the
It can't be too much left anyway, right? They probably, that's why it's a ghost town.
Well, no. So back in the day, when they were gold mining, they had shitty equipment. They were in a big hurry because they didn't need to pick up all the little stuff. It was the gold rush. They were finding the chunks. So they just went through California. Oh, there's so much left. I've found, my parents had a place down the street, and I've looked for gold a lot, and I'm not very good at it, but the one piece that I ever did find, I picked it up right off of the surface. I found a really cool quartz rock.
Oh, that's cool.
And I picked it up, and that piece of that little gold nugget was stuck to the mud on that quartz rock. So I've never seen this, but this was, who knows what, this was probably a basement for an old building. But there, I remember when I was walking over here now, I'll show you this. There's another one of those holes.
How many years have you lived here?
So I've lived in Chinese camp about 3 years, but I grew up in Groveland, just up the road my whole life, 40 years. Right here is where an old outhouse was. So this is where the hole was. That right there, you see that wood, how it's upside down? That's a roof structure that must have like blown off of this and landed on its top. But that was the roof for this here, and
Not much left of it anymore. I just couldn't imagine living in such a small town. I don't know what I would do with myself.
okay.
Oh wow, that's dangerous.
So there's these are, so if you look at this, well, so this is an old, look at this. So this, see the rocks? This is a rock stacked water well. See these rocks right here? So this probably goes down, oh, I don't know. There's one of these in my yard that's in an old building. They built a building over the top of it.
Oh wow.
But it's 65 feet to the water, just right across the street.
65.
I found an old map. I found an old map in that building over there. That it's an 1849 parcel map that has a handwritten in beautiful calligraphy. You know how people used to write in like calligraphy, real nice. A letter on this map that somebody wrote in pencil, and you can only see it with an ultraviolet light. And so last night was when I first noticed it, me and Richard, the guy at the store. And so we were trying to figure out what it says, but it's a handwritten letter from like 1840, and some lady wrote on this map, and then this map has, so I find these, I explore all around here out in these fields. If you ever see in the middle of a horse field 4 fence posts that don't belong out in the middle of a field, there's a big hole right there.
4 fence posts don't belong in the field.
It's so that
that's their well.
It's so, well, it's just a well or just a hole. It's so that their animals don't fall in. And every one of those holes is marked on that map with a circle and an X in pencil.
Wow.
It's kind of crazy too.
What do you guys do with that?
I don't know. Hopefully.
Have you ever seen Pawn Stars or
yeah,
American Pickers?
yeah.
There's probably a market for stuff like that.
Well, so
If you wanted to sell it.
I don't really want to like try and make any money off of anything, but it would be cool to find something. Like Richard's really big into history, and so if we found anything, unless it's like solid gold bars, and then I'd be like, adios to Mexico. I never knew any of you guys. Melt that shit down, I'll be fucking out of here. But anything else like historical stuff, I would like put it somewhere. Well, there's not really any place where people can. This is one of my favorite things. This is an old blacksmith shop. Underneath this roof, all just caved in, but underneath this roof, you can crawl around under there, and there are pulleys and billows, and there's a big old fireplace. There's a, I don't know what year it is, but it's a Fordson tractor, and I want to say it might be, I don't know when they started making tractors, but it's one of the, you can just go right over there and you could see it and take a picture of it if you want. Oh, we'll walk around the side because, well, we could walk over. Well, no, I got Crocs on. Oh, nailed it today. Where are you with that?
I'm from Maryland.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm just passing through.
Okay, the East Coast.
Yep. Have you ever been?
I have been to the East Coast, but not Maryland.
Well,
let's see. So my ex-wife was from Maryland. Or maybe. No, I think it was Maryland. There's beaches in Maryland, right?
yep, there sure are.
There's an old metal door. It's so cool.
That is very cool.
And look at that. Somebody tried to pry that. Somebody's put a lot of effort into prying that fucking piece of metal out because that's a big piece. Oh, look, there's another one of those holes. Oh, I'd never seen this one. And that's got rocks around it too. I've never seen this either. Look at this. Bins of square nails. Never seen that. But that's very cool. And we got some spray paint here in case we want to do graffiti.
Sweet.
Oh, but if I see that old guy, I was telling you about, I'm gonna get that spray paint can and I'm gonna be like this. Pretend like I'm graffitiing. He'll be like, he'll come. And we'll catch him.
We'll catch him. Ask him for some history of the town.
He's one of those guys who's never very happy.
Never very happy.
Yeah, well, also, he looks at people looking at this stuff like and I think
I don't know. I mean,
cool stuff. And
it is really cool. It's not like we're.
it's going to be very long before.
It's not like we have bad intentions. Right.
Not very long before this will all be 100% lost history.
Yeah.
Supposedly on one of these buildings, I've never found it, there's a painting, a Levi Strauss advertised. You know who made the most money during the gold rush? Levi Strauss.
Nothing like a good pair of jeans.
Well, think about one thing that every gold miner needed.
Gotta have
And they
something
didn't all,
durable.
Some gold miners like picks better than shovels or whatever, but they all had to wear pants. See that old tractor? Oop. You got flip-flops on too? I didn't notice.
Oh, you could. It's all good.
Oh, you can't see the tires, but the tires are metal. Like not, they wore out and the rubber fell off. They're just metal. Kind of cool.
It is very cool.
So have you ever been to Bodie?
Bodie? No.
Oh, you're from Maryland, that's right.
Yeah.
So there's another little town down the road a little ways called Bodie. And it's a ghost town. But they park rangers and it's been really well preserved. Pretty cool. I think they make you pay to go there. Another little thing about Chinese camp is there's a troop of peacocks that have been here ever since anybody I've ever asked, like the real old timer people, say that those peacocks have been here forever. Like,
And they're wandering freely?
oh yeah.
That's really neat.
So I can almost guarantee you they live in this one tree right over here. I hear them all, and they do that noise all day, and all night. There's one in the middle of the road right there.
Is that?
Yeah. The peacocks. The peacock. There's an owl. There's an owl that lives here somewhere.
Oh yeah, there's one right.
That's a big. Oh look. Okay. See him coming up here? The peacocks hate the owls. And this is one thing that I've noticed. I'll sit over here. So sometimes at night I come out or sit like right in here or something. I can find a little spot to hide. And I'll go like a predator call, like a rat or a rabbit or whatever, but just that little squealy noise. And so I make that noise, and then pretty soon, man, I'll be sitting there and all the crickets stop chirping. And this coyote was coming right up the road right here. Fucker.
That's so cool.
But I was making that noise going, and then all of a sudden he's just like, whoop. Well, he got to about right there where it says the head, and I was right here. You know, and I'm going like this. And I could see, but the peacocks, they don't like the owl. Every time you hear the owl, all the peacocks, whap, whap, and the big ones with big tails come after or wherever the owl is. They're like come to, I don't know what that means, or maybe if there's babies or.
Yeah.
But
That's really
it's different.
peculiar. I wonder why. I'm gonna walk down. I wanna.
Yeah, man. I've got myself. You want to go? We just go across the road.
Yeah.
And up the hill a couple hundred feet. There's a old Saint Xavier church
all right.
with a cemetery.
Let's go. Yeah, Richard mentioned that.
Super old cemetery. So cool. Those holes like we just saw right over there somewhere, but a lot of them have caved in and been filled in. Or this is a really cool. So this is a church, and this is one of the first things they ever built here. They built this church out of building materials that was shipped around Cape Horn.
Oh my
Back
goodness.
in the days, the materials for and there's another building in Chinese camp that underneath it, some of the floor beam structures has barnacles on it. And
So maybe it was from an old ship or something?
so a lot of times, so if somebody was coming here from, like, let's say China or Ireland or whatever, they didn't have airplanes, they didn't have, I don't really know, so they would bring their ships. And right after the gold rush, there was one bay in San Francisco that was full of ghost ships, and they sunk all of them in this one place. And they were all wood ships because people sailed here from all over the world for the gold rush. And so some of the people, you know, it would be a very tough thing, but a lot of those guys, well, I don't know about a lot or how many. I have not, me and my dad have built houses in this county for my whole life. I've only ever seen one place that had, I saw a barn one time that had barnacles on it, and I was like, what? It didn't even register at that time, you know. I was like elementary school, Didn't even register. And then later on in my life, I'm like, man, that barn at Sierra Glen.
It's like
Got
seeing
barnacles.
seashells in the desert. You just don't expect barnacles.
Well, but so
on a
what
house.
those guys did is they sailed here on their ships, and to leave your boat, I mean, some people probably just walked away from them, but to leave your boat at that place, they charged you. They're like, you can't just leave this shit here, you know, it's you know, because a lot of those guys sailed here, landed, disassembled their boat. I don't know if they built a wagon out of it or if they just, how would you haul?
It was cheaper to disassemble and reuse it than to store it. Or
Well, they disassembled it and put it on a wagon and hauled it up here on a wagon from San Francisco and built a building out of it.
It's so cool. It's really
Well, not this building. This so that was the
reduce,
ship.
reuse, recycle.
It was built with materials shipped around Cape Horn, but you know, I have no clue what that would have been or where did it come from and why did they ship it from that far away. Well, I guess because, and so that bell up there, if you notice, it's wood. When I very first came here, this building was like this, and it was going down the hill, and there was a big chain from this tree to the top and chained over to these trees, and I was sitting here and I was looking at that and I was like, and I could see the little cracks in the trim, and I was like, I wonder how much that bell weighs, but it's pulling this building over. And I was standing there and I was looking at it, and there was this old guy weed eating here. And he goes, what are you looking at there, son? And I go, well, I'm just looking at this old building. I like one of the things that I like old buildings.
So they put a wood one there to keep the building from falling?
No. So what it was, I go, that looks like that big giant bell's pulling this building down. And the guy goes, oh, and he kind of chuckles and he goes, well, that's a wooden bell. That's a wooden bell up there. He goes, so that couldn't be possible. And I look and I go, sure enough. I go, how did you know that bell was wood? And he goes, my grandpa, this guy, so Nicolini. His last name's Nicolini, and he comes in, I mean, almost weekly, and we eat this whole place. And he's the one that does all of these flowers. A lot of these are real flowers. Well, let's see, I don't know about today, but a lot of times, I was here one time and I was like, that's really cool. These flowers last a long time. And this girl goes, those are real flowers. But these ones aren't today. Oh man, this one's I don't know what you got going on or whatever, but if you want, I'm going to walk right up to the top of this little hill.
Yeah, let's do it.
It's like, so this hill, I'll show you. So before Chinese camp was Chinese camp, it was called Camp Salvo. And that was that okay, and then there's the other cemetery. That's on private property, but anybody who wants can go there because it's a cemetery and that's a law. You keep it open. And this is court. And so this whole mountain is a solid quartz rock.
Solid quartz rock.
On that 1849 parcel map, it points this mountain out as Gold Mountain. But so whenever they're looking for gold in certain places, it's always a different kind of situation. Like they're always digging holes and stuff, but here originally see how it's all flat over here and stuff. So all the bedrock here is right on the surface. And during the gold rush, that bedrock being right on the surface made it to where in places where you see the flat mountain over there, that's called Table Mountain. That's an ancient river that filled up with a volcano erupted, filled a river up with lava. That's why that's flat. And so that river used to wind all over the place, and it went through this valley here. I don't know exactly where, but you can kind of follow the river rocks. There's these piles of river rocks where they just don't belong, you know, but so that's kind of, but so all the gold here was right. Well, not right on the surface. You gotta dig down for it sometimes, but it makes it to where all the mines around here are in dirt. So they're not really around anymore. They've all caved in, If you go a little bit further up the hill, that's poop. I was like, look at those river rocks. You go a little bit further up the hill, and the gold mines are dug into solid rock, and those are not scary. Like, I'll go in those, but the stuff around here, forget about it. I don't like. And then there's this one. Every time I come up, like on a hill like this, or you go out in the red hills, it reminds me of, like, you know, back in the old days, like a stagecoach come, you hear gunshots and a stagecoach come flying across the thing with people. You know, that'd be kind of cool. And then California, where my parents live, they live in Grangeville, Idaho. The only place I've ever been in my life where we went on a hunting trip, and we were gone for a whole week. Never saw another person. The whole week. Never saw another person except for my dad and my brother. And that just doesn't happen in California. Well,
Do you like solitude?
nah, not really. You know, well, yeah, sure. I like it, but so I lived there in Idaho for about 5 years. I went to a power lineman school. I went to power lineman school, and I got a job working for Idaho Power. And so I had a good job, but in the wintertime, it snows 13 feet. And so you can't work in the wintertime at all. You can't really do, well, you could. Well, you couldn't build power lines in the winter. You know, you could, and I wasn't working for Idaho Power. We were building a brand new transmission power line that was unenergized. So, you know, there's a lot of power line work in the wintertime, but not for that place. But
I'm headed to Idaho next.
really, whereabouts are you going?
I'm just gonna drive through on my way to Yellowstone.
Oh,
Unless you
man.
recommend any stops.
Oh man, okay, so there's a lot of really cool. So my favorite place in Idaho is called Lake Payette. It's a little town called McCall, and it's a natural lake. It's not a man-made lake. It's way up in the mountains. It's called McCall, and it's basically Lake Tahoe without the crowd. It's all the cool stuff, all the cool places. They have a yacht. The lake's big enough to where they have huge boats on it. And right now, McCall is awesome. And if you get a chance to drive through, and Yellowstone is right there. Yellowstone, my parents live in Grangeville. It's a little bit, it takes 14 hours to get to Grangeville, but it only takes about 7 hours to get to Idaho. But if you get a chance to go drive through Riggins, Riggins is a valley in the Snake River Canyon, and the Snake River Canyon is just these jagged, super cool rocks. And it's the Salmon River. The Salmon River and the Snake River come together in Riggins. It's a really cool town.
Okay, I'll stop there. If anybody ever recommends a place, I always try to stop there.
Okay.
Because usually it's fun.
Yeah, and so, and I just love Riggins. I love that place, and McCall too. And I mean, if you really wanted to get out there, and in McCall, there is so McCall, there's a lot of people in McCall, and it's kind of like they have rental houses, and it's like thousands of people live in McCall. But so there's a lot, it's really like backwoodsy out there in McCall. There is a resort, and now when I say resort, I don't mean like, this place doesn't have any power, but there's 17 log cabins in the woods right next to a natural hot spring where the water comes out of the ground. It's 114 degrees, and there's a log swimming pool. They dug a hole and they used logs and put gravel in the bottom of it. There's a log swimming pool, and the freshwater spring comes out on one side of that pool, and as it gets to the other side, it gets cool. You can't hardly get in it over here, it's so hot. And we went there in a blizzard when me and my brother left the parking lot. About 10 minutes after we left the parking lot, I was like, hey, it was blizzarding so hard that we stopped, because my brother's like, we gotta stop. He's like, I can't see nothing, so I'm gonna have to smoke a joint before we go any farther, you know. I was like, okay. We stopped, and I was like, dude, our tracks are already gone. Our tracks are already gone. I was like, at this point, we can't turn back because I don't know the way, you know. I don't know the way. And so we rode in the nighttime in this blizzard with just instructions that my friends gave my brother. And so, but we got there, we found this place, and we stayed there for a couple days, and I go there every chance I get. So it's kind of a funny story. I'm not married anymore, but I was married for a while, and that I took that girl there all the way to Idaho, and then the only way you
That's
can
a nice date.
Oh, well.
I mean,
well, but
she's got to be impressed by that.
Well, I don't know. Oh, so then I had this ring in my pocket. The bottom of that pool is gravel, and it fell out of my pocket. Fell out, and I had it, the little loop, that hook loop around it, twice.
Oh,
you know,
man.
that thing was $8,000, and I was like, and then all of a sudden I couldn't find it, and so, and then it was funny because she was like, hey, what are you doing over there on the cold side? And I'm like, nothing, nothing. You know.
Did you find it?
Yeah, I did. I did. It was funny.
Did you tell her?
Huh? I never did tell her that. And you know what's funny about that ring? That was funny. When that ring, when we got divorced, I remember I didn't really care about that ring. You know, whatever. It was $8,000, but I didn't really care. And so, was this one day though? It was just a really, I don't know, maybe it was a little bit selfish of me, but I told her, I was like, I want that fucking thing back. And I was like, and I'm taking my car back too. I had a brand new Subaru, and I had this old piece of shit Toyota, and we were going through this divorce, and she was being a total bitch and fucking all my friends. And so I was like, oh, I'm gonna get my car back, and I'm gonna take that wedding ring back too. And so when I told her that we were exchanging our kid one day at the place where we exchanged our kid, I told her I wanted the wedding ring back, and she grabs me by the beard. She didn't say no or anything. She just grabbed me by the beard, and we're on the other side of the car. I don't think my kid ever saw that, but she grabbed me by the beard, and I grabbed her by the hair on the side of her head, and I was like, and it totally surprised me, but you know.
So she had your beard, you had her hair.
He had her hair, and I freaking wrestled that thing off of her finger. And then I get in my truck, and she's like, you asshole. You asshole. She's like, I'm gonna have my brother kick your ass. And I was like, well, it wouldn't be the first time he kicked my but so it was funny. She's like, well, I gave you that ring back. I was like, nope, I took it. And she's like, well, I want the ring that I gave you back. And I was like, oh, okay. And I took it out of my I had it in my little change dispenser thing. I had a little change dispenser thing, and I walked over to the car, and I should have just handed it to her, but I threw it in her car, and it bounced off her dash, and it went out in the grass in the field at the outpost. But it was only $120.
You got her an $8,000 ring, and she got you a $120 ring.
Yeah, that's okay though. You know. Oh, but so the funny thing about that's why I started to tell that story. The funny thing about that ring, I gave it to my brother, and his wife wears it now, and every once in a while, and so my brother's got 6 kids, and I go and I babysit them all the time because I'm the only person. They can't find any babysitters that'll babysit all of them, you know, and so that's kind of funny. Every once in a while I'll notice that thing. At first I was like, no, you can't give that to Tessa, it's bad luck. I was like, I'm gonna melt it. No, but it worked out good. Funny story though.
That is. There's. Maybe it's a lucky ring after all.
Maybe. I always got down in here and tried to find something cool in this hole, but I don't think there is nothing. Doesn't seem. Maybe underneath all this stuff. And so this hole right here is on that map. A circle and an X in pencil. And so this field right here in the daytime, you can't really tell right now because of all the grass, but there's huge piles of river rocks just in weird spots, and And another thing too, there is right over down there in that tree line, there's a junkyard of classic. I mean, there's a 1920 log truck, like old stuff back in the days when they started making vehicles, when they broke down, they would just leave them. And there's several places in the county where, or one of them, I don't know if they're still there. Sometimes they make you gather all those things up because they leak oil or whatever. But so this one down here was really cool because you walk through it there was not a single new car in there. It was all really old ones. And then a few years after I moved here for the first time, right after Richard bought the store, so for a couple weeks I was noticing, I was like, hey, there's all these official looking Chinese people all over Chinese camp. Everybody's like, shut up, man, you need to start sleeping more or something. And I'm like, they're all over the place. There's Chinese army men all over in Chinese camp, girls, guys, everything. So what they were doing here is they had found a place where they were burying all the Chinese people, and where they buried the and most of the headstones and even in the other cemeteries were wood, and you know, they're just not around anymore. And the wood, some of the wood tombstones, they say they would put a piece of copper and like scratch the names. And I found pieces of copper like out in the field. I found a piece of a human skull.
No way.
Yeah, in the creek when I was gold panning one time. I turned it into I was like, my dad's like, you got to turn that into the police. And I was like, okay, here you go. I was like, you call him. And he's like, no, I'm not calling them. You got to call. And I was like, that's against my religion to call the cops. So I'll give it to him, but I'm not calling them.